And we are now recording, and I believe we are live on Facebook. Welcome, everybody. Happy Easter. I hope you're all joining us. And I see some people on Zoom with their beautiful Easter hat, and I'm wearing my ears that match my shirt, just like Maria Carey this morning. I saw a picture of her with her ears. So anyway, happy Easter, and I want to start off before I turn it over to Lee and Alex. Lee is going to lead us in a sing along for happy birthday for April, all the April birthdays, and Alex is going to do her honoring of women in our church, plus prayer and things like that. But before we do, I want to share a screen of all the people who have been working with Alex. Alex has done this wonderful job of organizing everybody and cajoling and maybe even prodding once or twice people to help out in the Zen Garden, which has had a whole year of leave collection. And I wanted to particularly thank Alex for being there every single day. And then the rest of us showed up at various times: Joanne, Linda, Dennis, Dee, Barbara and Don, Sean and Chris, Kat, and myself, working either inside the kitchen in the cupboards or outside raking leaves or trimming bushes or getting rid of spider webs. And I want to thank them, everybody, so much. And we get a whole week off. I sent out the wrong dates in the constant contact, if you saw it. So we're going to be meeting again a week from Saturday, Sunday, and Monday and Tuesday on the April 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. Each day, the time is from 2 to 4. So thank you all very, very much. And now it's all up to Lee. Take it away, Lee, with a happy birthday to all the April birthdays.
It's your birthday's here. Your birthday comes just once a year.
Everybody sing out. You can unmute yourself to sing.
Shout
It's time to
down
blow
those candles out. We wish you a happy birthday. Oh, we wish you a happy birthday. Oh, we wish you a happy
Happy birthday from the bottom of my heart.
We wanna wish you
A happy birthday.
wanna wish you a happy birthday. Sing it, Dennis.
We want to wish you a happy birthday
From the bottom of our
heart.
Yeah, the birthday
All right,
people.
give yourselves a big hand. Yay. And
Birthday people.
thank you,
Can
Lee.
I want to announce the birthday people.
Go ahead, please do that.
All right, Catherine, Lynn, Virginia, Shirley, Lemon, Brianne.
That's it.
That's it.
All
Happy
right.
birthday.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everybody did a great, great job. And now please mute yourselves again, all but Alex and myself. Well, I'm going to mute myself too.
Well, happy Easter, everybody. This is so much fun that we're all dressed up. And thank you for the nice compliment, Rev. That was wonderful. I love pushing people around. And isn't it nice? They let me push them around. That's really fun. So let us pray on this beautiful God-given Easter day. And say to yourself, there is one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. And that life is my life now. I know love can conquer what is needed to conquer. And I know that powerful healing is happening to all those that are nestled needing healing in our church and beyond. I'm sending love and thanks to our fabulous Rev holding us together, who speaks today on the path less traveled. I welcome everyone who is joining us today. Be well, be loved, be kind. Happy Easter. And so it is.
So it is.
So now I have the pleasure of my next three fabulous women from First Church of Religious Science, Vallejo. And the first person is Nina Giannini. I grew up in Vallejo. I have a wonderful son and daughter-in-law. I have two grandchildren, Kai, who is 20, and Penny, who is 15. I am a realtor with Vista Realty, working under Emily Frank, who is a real estate broker. I am also a counselor with Eugene Gima Family Recovery Services. I was elected to the church board in 2020. We love having you. And I have been a member of First Church Religious Science Vallejo since 1999. You beat me. And I love life and I live it to the fullest. Yay, Nina. My next fabulous person is Elizabeth Armas. I was born in Costa Rica. I am a US citizen and I have 3 children. My vision is to certify and professionalize the cleaning industry. My commitment to excellence and value for integrity and honesty are my driving factors. I take pride in a job well done and derive pleasure from educating others to employ the same work ethic. The professional recognition in domestic engineering, PRIDE, is an educational program I created in 1989 with a curriculum designed to educate and certify domestic cleaning professionals at the highest standards in the industry. PRIDE has been used at Napa Valley College, Solana Community College, and UC Davis. The state of California Department of Consumer Affairs issued a certificate of authorization for service to serve as an instructor in California private post-secondary and vocational educational institutions in the field of domestic engineering. I am also an approved Employment Development Department Workforce Investment Act training provider. I have been with FCRSV since the 90s. So that's another fabulous person. And my last one today is Debbie Barmack. I was born of Jewish descent in Miami Beach, Florida. I have 2 sisters, one who made her transition in 2005, and I have a brother. I have 4 granddaughters and 5 grandsons. Wow. I have lived in many places in Florida, Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, San Diego, Bay Area, and now in Vacaville. I was a certified dental assistant, CNA, LVN, and RN, and now enjoying being a student monitor at an elementary school. The following covers 38 years I had in nursing: traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, medical and surgical floor, psychological unit, endocrinology, correctional facility, hospice, palliative care, skilled nursing, and also the rehabilitation unit nurse in the Alzheimer's dementia unit. I volunteer with many groups. I was a church board member. I support the women's group, the Divine Divas, and volunteer wherever and whenever is needed. It was the late 80s when I saw Terry Cole Whitaker. She was one of my first inspirations. My family was involved with Reverend Christensen in San Diego. My mom and dad were both New Thought. They always taught me you are what you think, that God is absolute, everything. especially my mom, always taught how the power of our mind impacts our life. Think and you will be. She always encouraged positive thinking. I have been with FCRSV for 6 years. Now, are those 3 fabulous women or what? Give them all a big hand. Thank you. So now we will do meditation for 3 minutes. I have my little chimes here. And so I will chime us in, and then I'll mind you at the end with the chimes. Talk to you later. So I leave you today with, I am a creative being of God. So say that to yourself 5 times all through the day. And now, Mr. Lee, we always have this little turnaround here. Okay.
Well, this song, One Moment at a Time, was the theme song for the 1988 Olympic Games. Each day I live, I want to be a day to give the best of me. I'm only one, but not alone. My finest day is yet unknown. I broke my heart for every gain to taste the sweet. I face the pain, I rise and fall, yet through it all, this much remains. I want one moment, dear, When I'm more than I thought I could be. All of my dreams are a heartbeat away, and the answers, they're all up to me. Give me one moment in time when I'm racing with destiny. Then in that one moment in time, I will feel eternity. I've lived to be the very best. I want it all, no time for less. I've laid the plan, now lay the chance. Here in my hand, I want one moment in time when I'm racing with destiny. Then in that one moment in time, I will feel eternity. So it is.
Wow, thank you, Lee. That was awesome.
Welcome.
I love it. So, for those of you who missed a very early part of Lee on Facebook, I apologize. I checked it and it didn't start recording right away on Facebook, but I corrected that. So, Lee was singing happy birthday to everybody who has a birthday in April if you joined us on Facebook. Those of you on Zoom, you probably didn't notice it because you're here. And this is where we have it all. So again, happy Easter, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us and taking and sharing your time with us today. It's special. It means something to me. It means something to all of us when you take the time to share your Sunday mornings with us. So today's talk is the path less traveled, and it's a story of a metaphysical story of the holiday that Christians celebrate, the resurrection of Jesus. And actually, many people celebrate Easter, even non-Christians, just because it's a great holiday. It's also a spring holiday. But as Ernest Holmes said, Jesus was not the great exception, he was the great example. As the human gives way to the divine, Ernest wrote, in all people they become the Christ. So that's really important, that Jesus Christ was not his name. Christ was a title, an anointed one. Jesus, the man, walked a path less traveled. And so today I invite you to walk with us along this journey of the path and see how you can emulate the great example that Jesus was, the story of Jesus. So today we join with many people in the world in the observance of the Easter, and we bring this metaphysical interpretation that allows us to embrace the spiritual meaning and principles above the literal level of the story, and to find personal resonance, relevance, and transformation. Because it was transformation when the stone was rolled back from the cave or the tomb. So it's our chance to take a moment and transform us in our consciousness. Though the mystical tradition holds that anyone walking the path of awakening towards full realization of our oneness with God and our divine identity will at some point and in some way personally live the various stages of the story of Jesus. Each step represents a natural and an inevitable step in the journey towards the realization of that Christ truth, that divine truth of our being. So someone on the CSL theme team picked this title, The Path Less Traveled, and I immediately thought of this book by M. Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled. You might have read it. It came out in 1978 and eventually sold over 6 million copies and was translated in 20 languages. It was promoted as a new psychology of love, traditional values, and spiritual growth. I read it sometime over that next 10 years after it came out, and I don't remember exactly when, but it was a point in time when I was changing my thinking and moving from my traditional Christian beliefs into exploring metaphysics and eventually New Thought. So you can tell this book and subsequent books of his that I read, they had an influence in developing my emergent belief structure that led me along the path to where I am now as a minister in religious science. So a synopsis of the book for some of you who might not have read it, and some of you is to refresh you, is that most of us try to avoid our problems. Hello. However, our spiritual growth depends on confronting them and working through the suffering they cause. In The Road Less Traveled, Peck teaches you, or teaches us, how to face the inevitable challenges in our life and to grow through that hardship and ultimately attain a deeper self-knowledge. So he recommended a path to spiritual enlightenment that includes 4 key elements: discipline, love, personal religion, and grace. And we at First Church of Religious Science have all of those, and we teach all of those, and we know that our community practices those 4 key elements. Because what Peck says is without these 4 qualities, you risk not only spiritual stagnation, but also the mental health problems that come with it. Embracing these 4 qualities lead to better health, better relationships, and a richer life. So according to Peck, the purpose of life is spiritual evolution, and in the context of wellness, spiritual competence is the highest form of mental health. So in The Road Less Traveled, Peck teaches us how to face those challenges in our life and grow through those hardships and ultimately attain a deeper self-knowledge. Now, maybe you've had a similar or an unusual path you have followed to this point today. Taking responsibility for my life was a big starting point for me on my spiritual path, growth, and development. Lao Tzu said, "The road you can talk about is not the road you can walk on." I love that saying. The road you can talk about is not the road you can walk on. So the story of Jesus was definitely a road less traveled by many of his day. The story of the last days of Jesus gives us a powerful outline for living a fully realized spiritual life. Unfortunately, it often stops short of the radical promise that his life exemplified. What I traditionally call the last words of Jesus are sentences that affirm spiritual practice that we can make use of in our daily lives. The focus is on 3 of those phrases. The first is, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That was recorded in Luke 23:34. For those of you who like Bible phrases, I'm going to be using them with a metaphysical twist today. So this statement, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," is something we can practice in our spiritual development. This statement speaks to a state of spiritual development of humankind and the deep love and compassion that Jesus feels for humanity. Love has ascended over law. It is important to see this as the law as popular understood at this stage of development. Forgiveness is a spiritual practice that purifies the soul. Ernest Holmes, our founder, wrote in 365 Days of Science of Mind, One of the outstanding things that Jesus taught was the mistakes of yesterday can be canceled. That God's creation is always taking place. And no matter what the experience of yesterday may have been, they can be changed. Please remember that. One of the outstanding things Jesus taught was the mistakes of yesterday can be canceled. Yesterday, the experience can be changed and how we think about it. Secondly, Jesus demonstrated his understanding of the importance of every human being throughout his recorded life. There were no social hierarchies or societal boundaries that he could not cross because he was fully human. He was equally at ease with the outcast as a social elite. We know these stories. We've heard these Bible stories. Jesus spoke to the criminal. He was able to see the true nature of Jesus as the Christ, saying, I tell you the truth. Today you will be with me in paradise. Again, forgiveness is the key. However, there is a shift that takes place in the criminal. He is able to make that leap of faith, forgive himself for what his life was before this moment. This moment is transformed into the eternal now. Paradise wherein lies the kingdom of heaven. The only way is through deep understanding of oneness, which the criminal achieves. And the third is according to John in 19:30, Jesus was fully aware that he has fulfilled his life purpose when he says, it is finished. Jesus knows that he has full authority over his life. He has spoken powerfully of this in his teachings. He has the authority to lay down his life and to take it up again. No one can take life from him. This is perhaps one of the most challenging teachings of Jesus as Christ consciousness. As a fully realized spiritual being, he is able to accept these particular circumstances and to see beyond the appearances. He feels no fear as he surrenders at that moment, for it is only the blink of an eye. Jesus knows and say, I and the Father are one. This is reality. Ernest Holmes wrote also in 365 Days, The Science of Mind, I know that limitation and fear do not exist in God's kingdom. Light of the Spirit within me dissolves every obstruction in my path. Everything unlike the perfect nature disappears. My entire thought, will, and imagination are saturated with the divine presence, which forever proclaim, behold, I make all things new. So Easter is this celebratory occasion to look at the spiritual evolution of Jesus, who is a representation of the promise of humanity. His life is a powerful example of that path less traveled. So as we say yes to our evolutionary journey, we take the path less traveled, assured that we will be transformed by it. The vision continues to unfold and the path is revealed with each step. Our faith guides us along the way. This is exciting. What is needed for our new journey? What spiritual values and practices are needed to help us navigate the path less traveled? From a suggested science of mind point of view, Easter is that celebration which looks at the story of Jesus, who is a powerful example of that path less traveled. He's a radical evolutionary who dared go against the grain of the religion into which he was born. Jesus said, don't misunderstand why I have come. I did not come to abolish the law of Moses or the writings of the prophets. No, I came to accomplish their purpose. That was written in Matthew 5. Their purpose was revealed by Jesus as an evolutionary leap into the full force of love and the revelation of that oneness of God with humanity. This truth enables us to clearly see the individual soul eternally and continually. This same insight brings us to this full awareness of heaven within, and God, heaven is a state of consciousness that is the eternal now. Ernest Holmes wrote in The Science of Mind, the original edition, that he believed that Jesus was the most highly developed spiritual master that the world had ever known. And according to Holmes, one of the most powerful insights of Jesus was that God and humanity are one. That is a concept that we practice in religious science, that we are all one with the divine. And his resurrection and subsequent disappearance of his body was a result of the spiritualization of his consciousness, through which he achieved another plane of existence. This was not a place, but an up-leveling of his consciousness. Jesus taught that this high state of consciousness is acceptable to each individual. So many of us have had experiences such as Jesus' story, the story of Jesus' life. We have had a divine birth, as in spirit taking form within it. There was a time when we were aware that spirit was operating fully within us. That was the moment of our realization of our divine birth. And we've had a Herod-type figure in our families or somewhere in our lives who sought to deny our uniqueness, our divinity, and in response we either fled away or we fled within. And years of wandering in the wilderness when purpose was only dimly heard and understood, if at all, was often part of our experience. I wandered for 50 years before discovering spiritual beliefs that stretched me, and 55 years before I stumbled into a religious science church, which accelerated that evolution of my own consciousness. Maybe you have had similar experiences of wandering around before you found a place that you called home, where you felt welcome and accepted. Just like I hope you feel here when you enter into the First Church of Religious Science in Vallejo, that you always felt welcome. Wherever you are on your spiritual path, you are welcome here, and you are accepted just as you are and just as you are not. And so maybe we've had these moments when we are tempted to give up our resolve to continue our spiritual practices and our evolution, and we fall into that inertia of the past, or we have expectations of our family and voices of a doubt creep in and around us. And that happens to many of us, especially if we discover these changes late in our life when our adult children maybe worry that we've gone woo-woo or fallen into a cult. And I always laugh because the people I know in religious science are more like cats than they are like a cult. And then there is our own personal crucifixions, the unstructuring and the dismantling of our lives, where we have to die to our limitations rather than dying from them one more time. And then by grace and the power of renewal, we have been lifted up, rewoven, and our lives reborn at a whole new level. Ernest Holmes wrote, "God has given us a power and we must use it. God is that silent power behind all things, always ready to pour into our experience that which we need. We should unify with it, declare our word to be the presence, the power, and the activity. Speak that word and the belief in its power." That is our prayer, that our affirmation prayer. We say it with feeling. For the more feeling we put in it, the more effect it has. So Easter is this story of the power of spirit that deeply lives within life. It is in our individual lives. It is in our very cells and the fibers and the tissues of our body and our very being. And that moves with all things and lifts them over and over again above the challenges and any sorrows and limitations of the world. It is that power that is always with us, that we can rely upon, that we can call upon in our time of need. It's a story of overcoming those challenges and renewal. It is an annual reminder that in the darkest moments, the deepest trials, and even the less dramatic times of struggle against fear or doubt or depression or financial uncertainty, that there is a light, the truth of Spirit's presence at the center of our being that burns with this power. It is this power that we may turn to, finding it within and calling it to work through us, speaking it into action to will and do what must be done by us. We access His power and invoke its renewal when we realize that there's something more than our daily human experience, and we begin to touch the God side. Emma Curtis Hopkins wrote in Scientific Christian Mental Practice, in the midst of what seems your degradation, when you look old, you feel sick, you feel poverty, cry at failure. If you would cease to give away to these things for one instance, you will see the meaning of it all is for you to know that you are a transcendent being with transcendent powers. I love that. That is such a reminder that we can rise above it. So examine examples that you may relate to personally or know someone who does, who is actually ready to rise up with these transcendent powers. A job loss. You see it not as a cruel act, but as the order and action of spirit moving you out of where you don't belong, and seeing your new job search not as a frustrating wander in the desert, but as an experience of being led and guided to where you belong, to people who love you, and to where spirit can use your talents for its purposes. And maybe it's an illness that is allowing you to see your experience as a call to face any belief in separation or a denial of life itself, and see it as an initiation into the truth of your wholeness as the truth of spirit in you always. Or if it's financial imbalance, that you appreciate your life is not merely an endless experience of not enough, but a spirit calling you to know that the self that believes it lacks is false. What is true is a self that is whole, free, and heir to good. Kathy Hearn, the former spiritual leader of United Church, said, the opportunity today is to call the power of spirit into personal application, not holding it apart from us or at arm's length, but from our lives, but rather to bring its renewal home to our hearts, inviting it as a living truth, to our families, invoking that activity of love in all family relations, regardless of the past history or current estrangements, and bring it to other relationships, particularly those troublesome ones. The easy ones, everybody can do. It's the troublesome ones that call us to a special awareness. And it restores to our perception of the truth of oneness. And in our bodies, honoring them, nurturing them, allowing them to be temples of that living spirit. To our understanding of situations and events in our own experience and in the world. Seeing that something about spirit is always working its way into expression. We see that on the national scene. We see that in the various states. We see that in the pandemic. We see that in the voting rights applications that are going on right now. This is a real world, and we see God at work in all of this. In our work in the world, giving of ourselves authentically and fully. In our dreams, we rekindle and lifting them to the highest thoughts of good. In Revelations 21:5, behold, I make all things new. Behold, I make all things new. So what would it take to do this? Turn to the highest truth of our being and know that we are beloved of the Spirit and created whole, and nothing broken and nothing missing. Think thoughts filled with the faith that there is a good for me and I ought to have it. Emma Curtis Hopkins said this, and it is one of my favorites. There is good for me and I ought to have it. You deserve it. You are entitled to the riches of the kingdom of heaven now. There is good for me and I ought to have it. And you respond to people and situations from our inner wholeness. Be new to the word and words and reactions to help generate an experience of newness. And we walk by this faith, bringing the best that we are and have to give to every encounter. And most of all, it is allowing our material sense of life to give way to that spiritual sense so that we know that nothing lies outside of the transforming power of Spiritist love, and that the dance of life and the play of life upon itself and the emergence of new life goes on and on forever. To live with a spiritual sense of life is to keep faith with life and with all the word means, even in the moments that feel like endings, even in the moments when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. It is knowing that renewal and rising above limitations are as close as our next thought, lifted to the truth that life is, that spirit is, that love is moving in and through all things, and as that which we are. So Easter invites us to see how much of our personal life the spiritual sense of life has taken over, to see where the human sense of things have given way to the divine. Consider where in your life you see the activity of spirit moving in, through, and as all of it. Where you have faith and where you know joy. These are questions you ask. And then consider the parts of your life that appear to lie outside of that activity, and where can change happen and healing appear possible rather than impossible, and how people who have appeared unreachable are reachable. They are reaching out. And where in the past non-forgiveness seemed too fixed to change, now there is a crack in the veneer, and there is a pathway for forgiveness to heal relationships. So in conclusion, well, we consider the Jesus story has been articulated in all parts of the earth, which is why it is so powerfully resonates with us to this day. Forgiveness is a powerful spiritual practice that is as much needed in a world that has been divided by hate and division of all kinds. Jesus was a patient master teacher who taught us to forgive 70 times 7, and as often and as long as it takes to reach a change in our consciousness. Are you willing to do 70 times 7 to have a change in your consciousness? This week, contemplate these 3 sentences. Allow yourself the freedom that patience, kindness, compassion, and forgiveness afford. Feel your heart open when you truly forgive, and be patient with yourself and others, and allow compassion to overflow from your big heart. Whatever your soul's mission is, forgiveness will support you in fulfilling it. Today is a wonderful day to celebrate that resurrected parts of our lives. The work we have done to see spirit and sense the presence of love and the power of good in action. It's an opportunity to tell the truth about the other parts of our life that we hold apart from spirit, that remain unrisen, not transformed, still in the tomb with the stone safely in place. The call is to roll away that stone and let spirit in, and begin by saying this: I praise my life, I raise my life in the name of love. I praise my life, I raise my life in the name of love. So today, let us allow ourselves to be transparent to transcendence, to be willing to be new, to love new life, and to be open to that lifting power of spirit and to the possibility of renewal and rebirth that are woven into that truth of our very own being and our life in and as God. So what is the path less traveled for you? Have you embarked upon the path less traveled already? If you have, what have you learned? If you yearn to take the path less traveled, what are the obstacles and what must you release to travel? Do you have a vision of the path that calls to you? It is your path to choose. Only you and the divine spirit and power within you know the right way to travel. Thank you. Namaste. And now let's pray. I just invite you to take a moment and go within. And on that in-breath, know that you are absolutely being breathed, receiving breath from that divine power of the divine spirit that I call God right now, right here. That is a power, the strength that you have called upon every time you take a breath. Know that that is a power that lives in your life, lives in your body, lives in your environment, for it is all that there is. Knowing this is a power you have access to, for there is good in this world and you ought to have it. So you name it and you claim it, and you step onto that path less traveled. You are willing to move into a new way of being, that Christ consciousness. You are ready for a transformation, even if you've been transformed many times before. Allow yourself the rebirth opportunity of this beautiful Easter morning. So I give great thanks for everyone here. I know that anyone suffering from the appearances of illness or disease, that they are healed. And the healing is the revealing. It is that revealing of the truth of who they are. It is the revealing of the magnificent power and connection that they have with the oneness. And we send out those special prayers to Karen, to Mary, to Emily, to Louise, to Annette, and to anyone feeling discomfort, for we know the perfection of the divine is within you, and we know that that transformation is on the cusp of being. So we know this prayer. And so I give great thanks for this day of remembering who we truly are, this transformation in our consciousness. So I call it good. I just know that this day is such a glorious, beautiful day that was created for our enjoyment. So I release my prayer into the action of the law, for I know that it just says yes. And with this heart I say, and so it is. So now I'd like to have us join in the affirmation. I joyfully take the road of radical forgiveness to freedom. Would you like to say that with me? I joyfully take the road of radical forgiveness to freedom. So today I have, before I open up into community gathering, I have, and I will ask you all to unmute yourselves soon. I have the announcements that I would like to ask us to remember that we are a church that is still not populated by us, but we still have bills to pay. So if you would, please go to our webpage and through PayPal, you can give online giving or your bank bill pay, or the way that always works, write a check to First Church of Religious Science, 229 Springs Road, Vallejo, California, 94590, or if you're in the neighborhood, drop it in the bookstore shop. We really appreciate it. We hope we're getting this church ready, and so when it is safe to do so, we will go ahead. But we are going slow to be safe. And I understand that even Solano County may be going back to purple again. So we are keeping aware of everything, and we will let you know as soon as we can. And for all of that, let me say I want one more thing to do. I want to get ready for the Easter parade as soon as I get Alex back and Lee. There's Lee is. Let me get Lee, let me get the words up on the screen. And please, everybody, unmute yourselves so you can sing along with Lee. Lee, give me a few minutes to get this up, okay?
Okay.
And thank you. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right, so I tried to get it. It's the Easter parade. I think if I do this, you can all see the words, right?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Up.
I lost it. Hang on. There you go. You got it, right?
Yes.
All right,
Got it.
Lee, you're in charge, Lee.
Don't forget to sing. In your Easter
Easter
bonnet,
bonnet with all the frills upon it. You'll be the grandest lady in the Easter parade. You're all in clover, and when you over,
I'll
be the proudest person in the Easter parade.
on
The Avenue, Fifth Avenue.
Fifth Avenue.
The photographer will snap us, and you'll find that a sonnet about your Easter bonnet, and the one I'm taking to the Easter parade.
On the
Avenue, Fifth Avenue. The photographer will snap us,
and
you'll find that you're on the road with her. I could write a sonnet about your Easter bonnet, and one I'm taking to the Easter parade.
Yay!
Give yourselves a big hand, everyone. Yay! And now I'm going to stop Facebook, and I'm going to stop the recording.